Have you ever wondered about the role theology plays in Darwinian evolution? You might be surprised to find out. Most of us have been taught that Darwinian evolution is based on atheistic naturalism. This perspective holds that there's no need for a higher power, such as God, to explain the diversity of life on our planet. It's all about natural selection and random mutations, right? Well, not exactly. As it turns out, this perspective isn't the whole story. According to a 2011 article titled Charles Darwin, Theologian, Darwin's seminal work, The Origin of Species, is not just a scientific treatise, it's also filled with theological arguments. So rather than being purely empirical, Darwinian evolution seems to have a significant theological component. So it appears that Darwin's Origin of Species was not a purely scientific argument, but was also heavily intertwined with theological arguments. Theology's influence on Darwin's theory didn't end with Darwin himself. It continues to shape modern interpretations of evolution. This might come as a surprise to those who view evolution as purely a scientific concept, but it's a perspective that's been gaining traction in recent years. Take Cornelius Hunter's 2021 paper titled Evolution as a Theological Research Program. Hunter argues that Darwin's theory was far from being purely scientific. Instead, he posits that it was deeply rooted in theology. In his own words, theological claims are common in Darwin's On the Origin of Species, where they are essential to his science. According to Hunter, this theological foundation wasn't peculiar to Darwin's thought alone. It has persisted and remained influential in evolutionary thought since Darwin. Hunter's perspective is echoed by other scholars. Let's consider Stephen Dilley's 2013 paper, Nothing in Biology Makes Sense Except in Light of Theology. Dilley scrutinizes Theodosius Dobzhansky's famous article, Nothing in Biology Makes Sense Except in the Light of Evolution. His findings? All of Dobzhansky's arguments hinge upon sectarian claims about God's nature, actions, purposes, or duties. It's not just Dobzhansky either. Dilley finds that other leading evolutionary theorists, including Mayer, Dawkins, Eldridge, Ayala, De Beer, Futuyma, and Gould, also use theology-laden arguments. These findings underscore a fascinating yet often overlooked aspect of Darwinian evolution. They reveal that the theory of evolution isn't just about the science, as is commonly believed, but it's also a product of theological argumentation. It's not just about natural selection and survival of the fittest. It's also about wrestling with questions of divine nature and purpose. This deeper look into the evolution theory shows us that it's not just about biology and natural selection, it's also about theology. The intertwining of theology and evolution presents a fascinating paradox, especially when it comes to biology textbooks. Let's delve into a study from 2019 by Steve Dilley titled, Damned If You Do and Damned If You Don't. The Problem of God Talk in Biology Textbooks. In this intriguing exploration, Dilley examines 32 biology textbooks, including the Big 12, which are the top 4 textbooks in each of the key undergraduate categories: biology for majors, non-majors, and evolution courses. His findings? Quite surprising. Dilley discovered that these textbooks are caught in a crippling dilemma. If they include theological claims in their case for evolution, they face significant difficulties, in that God is supposed to have no place in Darwinian naturalism. But if they exclude theological claims, they're still in hot water, in that the science by itself simply does not provide compelling evidence for evolution. In simpler terms, whether these textbooks include or exclude God talk, they're confronted with debilitating problems. This reliance on questionable theology, rather than empirical evidence, is particularly interesting. After all, Darwinian evolution is purportedly based on atheistic naturalism, the belief that all phenomena can be explained in terms of natural causes and laws. It's a view that excludes any role for a deity or spiritual realm, particularly God. Yet here we have biology textbooks, the cornerstone of educating future scientists, wading into theological waters to try to make their case for evolution. This raises some intriguing questions. Can we consider Darwinian evolution purely scientific, or does it also veer into the realm of theological discourse? And if so, what does this say about the theory itself? Is it as solidly grounded in empirical evidence as we've been led to believe, or is it crucially dependent on questionable theological arguments to try to shore up its case? So, it seems that bad theology, far from being irrelevant, is central to Darwinian arguments. This raises the question, can we consider Darwinian evolution purely scientific, or is it also a theological discourse? As we have seen, the relationship between theology and Darwinian evolution is far more complex than it initially appears. The curious case of bad theological arguments in Darwinian evolution is a fascinating study in the interplay of science and belief. Charles Darwin's seminal work, The Origin of Species, far from being strictly scientific, is rife with questionable theological arguments. We've also seen how this theological underpinning continues to shape modern interpretations of Darwin's theory. Key thinkers in the field, like Theodosius Dobzhansky, Mayer, Dawkins, Eldridge, Ayala, De Beer, Futuyma, and Gould, have also employed theology-laden arguments. The examination of biology textbooks reveals a similar trend, demonstrating the enduring influence of theology on the discourse surrounding evolution. This exploration of the intersection of theology and Darwinian evolution challenges us to rethink our understanding of evolution as a purely scientific theory. It seems that theology and science are far more intertwined than we might have thought. That Darwinian evolution would be vitally dependent on questionable theological arguments should not be surprising. After all, modern science was founded in medieval Europe by men who were, by and large, devoutly Christian in their beliefs. Namely, they believed, among other things, that the universe was rational and that they, being made in the image of God, could dare understand that rationality behind the universe. Science simply couldn't be done if those basic theological presuppositions were not assumed to be true.